China, Iran, and Russia kicking off 4 days of joint naval war games in the Gulf of Oman and the Indian Ocean, as Tehran looks to improve military ties with Beijing and Moscow amid heightened tensions with the United States. Walid Phares is a Fox News national security and foreign affairs analyst. Walid, thank you for joining us on this topic. How concerned should the United States be about this effort made between these three countries, certainly not our allies?
You know, these developments are important because they allow us and our public to understand what's the situation, the real situation with Iran. Often we have friends and allies in the region and beyond who are putting pressure on us. You need to do more on Iran, more in Iraq, more in Lebanon. The reality is that this joint exercise between Russia, China, and Iran is a message that these two powers, nuclear powers, are telling the United States and our allies that we're not, quote, going to let Iran down if you do anything against it. So the calculations now for the United States is to take into consideration that we're not just dealing with Iran, but also with an axis, a larger alliance, including those powers.
In our current news cycle, we hear a lot about Iran and Russia working together, particularly when it comes to Syria, and I definitely want to touch on that point in a moment. But first, just weaving China back into this whole discussion regarding this, the Chinese Defense Ministry said this about these naval drills, that it would deepen exchange and cooperation between the navies of the three countries. Of course, this is a very important area, very close to the Strait of Hormuz, of course, a major area for getting oil tankers from place to place from Iran. So what does China's involvement mean for all of this?
Well, look, China and Russia, but China made the statement, is telling us that we're not going to allow you to seize and control this area and isolate Iran. This is very serious. That statement is very serious. And it could be also that they are willing, China and Russia, that is, to send some of their parts of their fleets or ships into that area, which would complicate things. But this reminds me of something else. Our problem with Korea is very parallel. I mean, we think that we are only dealing with Korea. In fact, China and Russia are backing Korea. So it's much more of an international coalition business that we're dealing with now.
And shifting to Syria, as promised, we know that Russia and the Assad regime are working together. At this point in time, it's created really a humanitarian crisis. There have been renewed airstrikes. And the aim is to get this northern part of Syria that is still considered a rebel stronghold for the Assad regime to regain this ground. Now, the president has issued essentially a warning. President Trump tweeting this: Russia, Syria, and Iran are killing or on their way to killing thousands of innocent civilians in the Idlib province. Don't do it. Turkey is working hard to stop the carnage. So, Walid, how hard is Turkey working, and does this warning from the president have teeth right now?
Well, that's the whole question. The president is really messaging President Erdogan and is telling him basically that Iran and Assad and Russia, of course, are moving to take back that area, and to put it back under the Assad regime. There will be hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of civilians who will flee. Where are they fleeing? They'll flee north towards Turkey. And from Turkey, what could happen? They could go to Europe. So it's a very serious matter. Unfortunately, President Erdogan, who backed the rebels in the beginning, is now very interested in intervening in Libya, like half the Mediterranean away. So that's why probably this is a reminder by President Trump to President Erdogan to take care of that neighborhood, not across the Mediterranean.
Well, you brought up Libya, and that's, you know, there are a lot of challenges there as well. You know, where does that stand right now?
Here's the problem. In Libya, you have a kind of a civil war. On the one hand, you have the Libyan National Army, which is fighting the jihadists, but it's not recognized by the government in Tripoli, which is backed precisely by Turkey. As long as the factions were internal, we could have solved this politically under the UN or so. But now with this warning from President Erdogan that he may send his air force and forces through Tunisia or directly to Libya, that complicates things because you have Greece that would oppose this, Italy and France. So the Mediterranean now is destabilized by this conflict in Libya. And we need, as U.S., to be very strong in trying to solve that problem.
Yeah, I mean, in this latest tweet, the president seems to be saying Turkey is working hard to stop the carnage. He seems to be leaning a lot on Turkey in that respect. I mean, how much can we depend on Turkey? It doesn't, there's been a back and forth most recently with the Turkish leader, the Turkish government, as to expectations and if they're going to meet any of the U.S. expectations on the ground there.
Well, we had the test in northeast Syria, and we saw that President Erdogan's government really first did not listen to the calls for ceasefire, the initial calls for ceasefire by the United States, and then kind of imposed their conditions on a ceasefire. But now, really, I think President Trump is right to issue that warning, because after that, we have no engagement in northwestern Syria except having Russia, Iran, and Assad in control, and with them Hezbollah as well.
All right, Walid Phares, thank you for your insights. You know, a lot of problems there in the region, and fascinating to get your insight also into these war games. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.